Good afternoon and welcome to The Way to Wow, People Making Money. I am your host, Kevin Bemmel, and that was weird. My computer just sort of, I don't know, did some strange things. So I know I sound a little bit nasally coming off of being sick. Anyone who's a parent, our children get everything from school and they bring it home to us, and it's one of the joys of parenthood. Honestly, wouldn't have it any other way. So but anyway, glad you joined me this afternoon. We are here, as you know, every Wednesday, 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern time, and an hour in for the two internal time zones, Mountain and Central. And today, we talked for the last couple of weeks, first about goal setting, and then last week about the 3 habits you want to build in order to be successful this year. So now I'm going to change directions a little bit and go to a subject that we've talked about before, and that is starting a business. So I think for many of us, we really want to have our own business for many different reasons. I think most of us sense most of us like the idea of having a sense of independence, where we're our own boss. And as someone who has had his own business for many years, I can attest to the fact that having been my own boss has been both a blessing and a curse. But in general, all joking aside, I really enjoy being my own boss, and even in projects that I work on where ostensibly I'm an employee, the idea is really to be in more of a partnership. So it may not literally be my own business, but it's a business that I'm working on with other people where I have some control over my destiny. And that's what's really important. For people, for the majority of people who start their own business, okay, they're not necessarily going to make more money than they would as an employee. That's not a given. It can be a result, but it's not necessarily one. Where having your own business is advantageous is that you have a great deal more flexibility in your life. And oftentimes in the most crucial aspects of your life, there's no one dictating to you how you have to handle those things, so that you're not in a position of losing your entire income if you disagree with the position that your boss is insisting you take or something like that. So, in your own business, you may have a client who you just get at odds with to the point where you feel that you cannot serve that client anymore. You ask the client to leave. Say, I'm not interested in doing business with you anymore. In fact, yesterday afternoon, I was talking to a friend of mine who has her own business, and she was relating just such an incident. And she said to me, without my prompting her, one of the reasons she likes having her own business is at the point where a customer just becomes impossible to deal with, she wants to be able to say to that customer, I don't want you for a customer anymore. Please leave my store and do not come back. And she has done that on occasion. And it's been, by the way, for the betterment of her business, because when you have a client or customer like that, they take an inordinate amount of your time, and usually it's all out of scale with the amount of revenue they're generating for you. So I think it's important here at the beginning of the year to think about, is 2023 the year I'm going to start my own business? Now, obviously, you can start a business and go into it full time, and you can start a business going into it part time. And as much as we may desire to be in our own business full time, that may not be practical. the bills don't stop when we decide to launch our business. And rarely are we going to launch a business where the revenue that it generates is going to be sufficient for us to immediately be able to rely on that business to support us. So I think that's, a big consideration. And so for many of us, maybe most of us, the idea would be to start a business part-time, kind of like what do they call it, a side hustle or a side gig, something you can do along those lines that you can build, and maybe at some point you'll be able to run that business full time, and it will become the way that you support yourself. So what I'm going to talk about today are two easy ways, or two of the easiest ways, I think it would be best to describe it. Two of the easiest ways to start a business. You could go into them full time if you've got a spouse, for example, who will support you while you start a business. Maybe you are going to start a business with the idea that you're going to do it full time from the beginning. But otherwise, in both of these paths, you can work them part time to begin with, and you can build up to full time, and that may be a more practical way of handling things. Just to give you an example, so I have a very close friend who's a Navy colleague of mine, and when I met him, he was still in the Navy, and he and a partner had started a real estate investment business. And for those of you, he was a guest on my show a while back, John Rubino. So John had his business; it was just a part-time gig for him. And when he decided to retire from the Navy, one of the key questions he had to answer, he and his wife really had to answer, was he going to go into that business full time, or was he going to keep doing that as a side gig and get some other job outside of the military? And I think to John's great satisfaction, he decided to go into that business full time. But at that point, he'd already been running the business part-time with his partner for, I believe it was 3 or 4 years, maybe longer than that. So, and that's a perfectly viable way to start things. So whether you're in the military, whether you have a civilian job, that doesn't make any difference necessarily. What makes the difference is, will you devote the time that it takes and the regular time that it takes in order to start a business and get it to the point where it's successful on some level, right? And that's the discussion I would encourage you to have with yourself or with your spouse or your significant other. Because starting a business is going to take time away from other things that you do, and if you have another job, so you're probably not going to be able to reduce the amount of time you spend on that job, not without your boss questioning what's going on. So the time is going to come out of time that you spend with your family, your friends, your spouse, etc. And I would encourage you to socialize, if you will, the plan to start a business with them, so you don't end up down the road with them complaining that you have no time for them, or you don't have enough time for them, and then you get into this cycle of feeling guilty every time you're working on your business, but that's what you got to do. So with those thoughts in mind, let's go. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I have here we go. Yeah, a PowerPoint presentation. Right? Death by PowerPoint, they say. And it's going to come up here in just a minute. Here we go. And I'm going to move there we are. That way I can look in the center, and I'm still looking at you while I see the screen. So I hope you like this. I kind of like this slide. It's like the things on the brick wall. I don't know, just seemed like the way to go, So the fastest way to start a business, I think it's the two easiest ways, and I realized I changed it right before the show, because starting a business is not easy, and even starting a part-time business is not easy. There are, of course, easier ways to do it, than there are easier and more difficult. But I think it's better to say the two fastest ways to start a business. You can get up to speed potentially more quickly because of what I'm going to be suggesting, and that's and so that's a better way of looking at it. I don't want you to take away a false impression like, oh, Kevin says this is easy, and you go talk to me and they're like, oh, this guy's crazy. The fact of the matter is, just to stress, it is not easy to start a business. It's a commitment, and your success is going to be driven largely by your commitment to making your business successful. That's what's going to make the difference. And if you have a family, you need your family's buy-in in order to sustain your own commitment, in order to avoid a lot of conflict. Okay, so let's see. I should just be able to click, right? Yeah, there we go. All right, so I wanted to point this out so that you understand how this fits in. The show People Making Money is an outgrowth of the 3 pillars of attainment, and it's really dealing here in the pursuits realm. I mean, the pursuits pillar, and in the finances realm. Okay, and that's why, of course, you notice the green theme, right? Okay, I know it's a little bit silly. Keep in mind, though, that when you start a business, it's going to have impact on and be impacted by many of the other realms. In fact, all of the other realms. So if you start a business, you're probably not going to be playing as much as you did before you started the business. That's just reality. And you're probably going to have less time to learn things, although in some ways, starting a business is going to give you an opportunity to learn a lot of new things. That's part of what being in business does, is it gives us an opportunity to grow. And one of the areas in which we'll grow is our ability and our necessity to learn and absorb new things and then put them into practice. So if you have a desire to learn, starting a business can be one of the best ways to do that. Now, your identity will change. Okay, you're no longer just an employee. You are now a business owner. And I encourage you to look at yourself in that way. Create that image for yourself in your mind. That's part of what's going to help you keep going when it gets difficult. Okay, so whether you think of yourself as an entrepreneur or a business owner, or however you want to create, I'm a businessman, I'm a businesswoman, however you want to identify that to yourself, start right away with making that a reality. Okay, and being in business, it's going to affect your health. Okay, and one of the things I would say is, if you're going to start a business, if you are not already looking after your health before you start the business, get your health in order. Starting a business is not going to improve your health. And the temptation is going to be to cheat, if you will, on your health habits, sleep, diet, and exercise, because you want to spend the time on your business. That's a bad bargain. Okay. Now, there will be some times when you're going to not get enough sleep because you're doing something for your business. Gotcha. But regularly sacrificing sleep to be successful in your business is not a long-term plan for success. It's just not. You'll take it from me. Dealt with this a lot in my own life, as well as among the lives of friends and people that I've consulted with who are starting businesses. Keep your sleep up. Keep your diet up. You need the energy and ability to focus that comes from eating well. Okay, so getting into eating fast food every day because it's quick and you need the time to run your business. Wrong way to go. again, it's not sustainable for the long term. And so if we're going to make a change in our professional life, we want to make a change that we can keep going and that overall is going to improve our life. So if we're going to improve our professional life and we're going to, I can't think of the word opposite of improve, we're going to degrade our health, that's not a winning situation. Okay. And finally, exercise. Now, I will say, I think exercise and being in business go together, because business is fundamentally a problem-solving discipline. And solving problems takes thinking, working things out, coming up with ideas. And exercise is one of the best things we can do when we need to generate ideas. And I will tell you again, just from my own life, when I need to fix something or I need an idea about something, I'll go walk. That's one of my primary means of exercising. And the process of walking and getting my blood flowing and listening to my music and letting my mind just sort of, spin through ideas, oftentimes that's what it takes for me to figure out what it is I need to do or figure out the answer to the questions I have, whatever. So I would, as much as possible, work to integrate exercise into the plan you have for starting and executing your business. Okay. So again, keep your health up. Letting your health decline because you want to start a business, not a good trade-off. Okay. And finally, mindset. So while you change your identity, okay, your mindset now is going to become, it's going to need some different inputs. Okay. So it's going to be a back and forth thing. Starting a business and the setbacks and the problems that the business creates can have a negative impact on our mindset. And so we need to create greater resilience in our mindset in order to support us as we work on our businesses. Okay, so you can see how these things interact. All right. And then in the relationships realm, so I've mentioned already a couple of times, starting a business is going to impact our relationships. And we want the support of all of these people, and even more so the buy-in, if possible, of all these people in order to give us the best chance at succeeding in our business. Okay. And so again, your family, your friends, for sure. You say, wait, you want God? I should have God's support to make my business successful? Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, if you're not, you don't believe in God or whatever, okay, so you don't have to worry about that. But if God is a part of your life, so then I think this is something that you want to pray on, and is this part of? Do you get a sense that this is part of God's plan? Okay, I personally don't believe in that God literally talks to us, but I think that through prayer and an effort to connect with God, we can sometimes get a sense of whether it's a propitious time, that kind of thing. And so I would encourage you to engage in that process if God is a part of your life, and in essence get His support. Okay, so I wanted to talk about this overall in terms of how this fits into the 3 pillars of attainment and how those various issues can work together, if you will. All right, so let's go to now one of the 2 fastest ways to start a business. This thing won't stay up there. Okay, well, it is what it is. All right, so if you have a skill, interest, or hobby, okay, that can be turned into a business. Okay, so what are you good at? Just ask yourself that question and just simply make a list. What am I good at doing? Am I good at sewing? Am I good at knitting? Am I good at plumbing? Am I good at talking to people? Okay, And by the way, I don't mean just one thing. Make a list of the things that you're good at. Okay. Are you good at building models? Are you good at taking pictures? Just make the list. Don't worry about what business could come out of them. Don't worry about that at first. Just make a list. What am I good at? Okay. And then you can either go through that list or make a separate list. What do you like to do? Okay. So maybe you're, I don't know, really good at auto repair, but you hate doing it. Okay. Fair enough. So that's probably then not a good path to start a business. Maybe you're a good teacher and you really love teaching. Okay. Well, so then that's a potentially more fruitful path to follow as you look for business ideas. Okay. And then last, what are you already doing that can be monetized? Okay. So there's lots of things that we're good at that can be very difficult to turn into a business that's going to give us any kind of significant amount of money. Okay. One that comes to mind is writing. I think you may love to write and may be a great writer. It's very difficult to make money writing, frankly. It just is. Okay. Making money off of a book. First of all, if you're going to go the conventional route, you need to find an agent, and then you need to have a book proposal. The agent needs to sell the book proposal. And then once it's sold, you know what you make on a hardcover book? Typically about $1 a book. And on a softcover book, typically about 10 cents a book. Right? So let's run the numbers. To make decent money writing a book, you'd have to sell 20 or 30,000 copies a year of hardcover. By the way, that puts you in bestseller status. Just that number. Okay, check it out if you don't believe me, but it's true. These days, we think of a bestseller like 1 million copies sold. Very, very, very few books sell like that, especially for new authors. Now, there are, one of my favorite authors is a guy by the name of Richard Prather, and I was reading one of his books. He wrote detective novels back in the 50s and 60s primarily, right? And on the front of one of the books, 40 million copies sold. Okay, now he wrote these little pulp novels. So at best, I don't know what the royalties were back when he was writing, but in today's numbers, okay, at 10 cents a copy, he made $4 million. $4 million, that's a lot of money. Yeah, he wrote for, I think, 30 or 40 years. So $4 million divided by 40 is $10,000 a year. Okay. And now in the 50s and 60s, $10,000 was decent money. Okay. But today, even having sold 40 million paperback books at 10 cents income per book, over 40 years, $10,000 a year, is it worth the amount of work and such that it takes? And again, he built up to that. I'm sure his first few books didn't sell a lot of copies. So I'm not saying therefore you shouldn't choose writing as a basis for your business, but just understand what the challenges are to it. So by the way, one of the people I would encourage you to, how do I put this? So I interviewed my friend Marcia Collier several weeks ago now, I believe it was. If you go to my YouTube channel, find the show that Marcia did, and she talks about how she became successful as a writer. Okay, it took her years and years to do so, especially once she started her own business. Okay, so, and she did it, and she's, really loves her work, and she loves what she loves what she does. She's had a great impact on a lot of people. Okay, so there is a path there, but that path is a tough path. Okay, there are probably easier paths than being a writer. I'm just using a writer because I think a lot of people think, well, I would love to write and make some money off my writing. It's not an easy path. It's gotten more and more difficult after over the last 20 years because there's so many people who are writing. There's so many places to put their stuff, and most of them don't pay you anything for doing your writing. Okay, so what is something that would work? Well, I mentioned plumbing. If you're good at plumbing, okay, you can turn that into a business. And these days, probably more easily than any times, any time in recent past. There are such a high demand for people with building trade skills. Okay, I'm going to talk about that in a different context in the next one. But you could be a handyman or a handy woman, I guess. I don't know, a handy person. And you can get paid pretty well. Okay. And honestly, I'm not sure what handymen make here in Los Angeles, but I got to believe it's at least $20, $25 an hour, maybe more, maybe $30, $40 an hour. Okay. And that's good money. So if you do good work, electrical work, plumbing, carpentry, anything like that. Okay. And if you can do that work in a way where you don't have to have a license, okay, you're just doing repair work, okay, you can do pretty well. And there's lots of platforms where you can register and people can find you and do repair work. And if you're conscientious, okay, you show up on time, you're dressed properly, you take care of the problem, relatively efficiently, you can do very, very, very well. And by the way, not be stuck, but sitting behind a computer screen all day long. Get out there and maybe part of the time, maybe you're working outside doing your repair stuff or whatever. Okay. So that's one area where I think you could find, pretty quickly develop a nice side business. Maybe you only do that on the weekends. Okay, or maybe you only do it on Saturdays or whatever it is, or you only do it on Sundays, or you do it a couple evenings a week and weekends or whatever. You could do very, very well at that if you're good at it. If you like to do it, that's something that can be monetized pretty easily. Okay. I also mentioned sewing. So I have these. They call them smoking caps. I may have mentioned them before, Eliza. So I found them on, I believe it was Etsy. Okay. If you're not familiar with Etsy, it's a platform where people who make things market what they make and sell them. And it's really great. You can find all kinds of wonderful stuff there. Excuse me. So if you're a very good, craft in terms of that, sewing or knitting or crocheting or whatever, you can sell them there. And Eliza makes these beautiful smoking caps. I suspect that she can turn them out pretty quickly based on what she sells them for. And they're beautiful, they're comfortable, especially in the wintertime when it's cold. I put one on, I don't have to be blasting the heat to stay warm in my house. And they're really quite unique. I haven't found anyone else who makes them. And you can buy them pre-made, but they're not anywhere near as nice as the work she does. And from what I understand from her, she really enjoys the sewing and the creativity of it. She has, 20 different ones, I think, that she makes or something, different colors with different color tassels and little bit different style or whatever. They're really beautiful, and she loves it. It's not her. I don't think it's her full-time thing, by the way. But I suspect she probably makes, I don't know, 20, 30,000 a year, doing something she enjoys, that I think she knows brings enjoyment to her customers. And it's a great, I've always admired that she started this business. And you could do something similar. Okay. And if you're if you like doing craft oriented things, so go on Etsy, look at the kind of things that people are offering. Maybe there's something similar that you could do. I had one of the other things I got on Etsy was I had a chest build, a wooden chest. I wish I could remember the names of the people who made it. They did an absolutely beautiful job. It was all custom made. They matched the color to the color of some shelves that I wanted to put the chest on. They carved some letters into it. Superb job. Real craftsmanship. Now, it wasn't inexpensive. It was an expensive thing that I bought. This is going back several years ago now. So you don't necessarily have to sell something like Eliza does that's maybe whatever it was, $50-$60. These things, multiple $100s spent on them, and people buy them. I know, again, from having communicated with them, that they get a fairly steady stream of orders. I don't think it's their full-time thing. I think it's something I say I think it's a husband and wife, or at least a couple. I think it's something they do that they love to do. They love to, do woodworking and that sort of thing. And so they created a business out of it. And again, on a platform like Etsy, you can do that. There's also, excuse me, and by the way, I have no interest in financial interest in Etsy. I'm going to mention Shopify. I have no financial interest in Shopify. I think Shopify is owned by Microsoft anyway, but Shopify could be another way for you to, quickly start a business rather than, having to start your own, create your own website, all that kind of stuff. There are platforms out there that make it very easy to start a website. And then, the key thing, of course, in any business like that, where you have a product or a service, is you've got to be marketing it. And social media can make it much easier to do today than it was in previous times. Now, a lot of your success is going to come from what kind of demand there is for what it is you're choosing to do. So that's why I mentioned things like plumbing, electrical, carpentry. There's a big demand for those things these days. And so if you are good and you're reliable, I think you're going to find you're able to grow your business pretty quickly. Maybe less so in terms of if you're doing something that you craft, like sewing, woodworking, whatever. But that doesn't mean you can't be successful. It's probably going to take you longer. It's going to be more work in terms of finding your customers. But once you start, supplying these things to customers, and they see the quality of what you're doing and are very delighted by it, then you start to develop a reputation, and you can get testimonials from them, and those testimonials can turn into more business. So again, one of the two fastest ways to start a business is to base it on something you're already good at, you like to do, and that can be monetized. Okay, so let's get out a piece of paper, start writing down the answers to these questions, and then just brainstorm with yourself, or brainstorm with your spouse or whatever, and maybe you'll come up with an idea. Now, I'm going to mention this at this point. The first idea you come up with may not be successful, okay, for whatever reason. Okay, that doesn't mean that you're never going to be successful starting a business. Okay, the first several businesses I started weren't successful. I've mentioned in the past, I started a t-shirt business, wasn't successful. One of my friends and I produced some movies. I mean, we made our money back in most of the cases, but we didn't really make any significant money. Wasn't really successful, right? So, at some point, if it doesn't look like you're going to be successful, just know, hey, I'm going to cut my losses. I'm going to look at doing something else. Okay. So the other thing I would say is, don't be sort of married to, if you will, whatever idea it is that you come up with. If after whatever period of time you feel it's necessary to be successful, and that'll be different for different kind of businesses, you're not successful, so then maybe consider trying something else. Okay. If you like dogs, maybe there's a need for dog walkers or dog sitters where you live, right? So maybe you'll try that. And maybe it turns out you were wrong. People don't need the service. Or, by the way, it could also turn out there is a need for it, but it's not as enjoyable a business as you thought it would be. So maybe you want to try something else. The challenge is you don't want to quit on something too soon, right before it becomes successful. On the other hand, you don't want to keep beating a dead horse, as they say. So those are some of the issues to think about as you pursue this interest. And here's again, this is one of the 2 fastest routes to starting a business. Okay, and let's look at the second one. So the second one is licensed professions. Okay. Now, what does licensed professions have in common with something you're skilled at, that you're interested in, etc.? In both of these cases, I'm giving you ways to start a business that don't need a significant amount of money, a significant amount of capital to get you started. Okay? Even if your business is going to be, let's say, plumbing, I've been using that quite often, right? You are going to need some tools, but you probably, if you like doing plumbing, you probably have a lot of those tools already. You may need a few more. You may need a toolbox that you can carry around, whatever, but that's, in the end, that's not a lot of money. Okay. Whereas, starting a retail store, for example, that's a lot of money. You need money for rent. You need to build out the store. You need to get inventory. You need to maybe hire employees. All of that costs a lot of money. So I avoided those kind of businesses in coming up with these 2 different paths to becoming a business owner. Okay, so licensed professions. So real estate, financial services, building trades. Okay, now there are others. There's things like hairstyling, hair cutting and hairstyling. That's a licensed trade, although it's not a building trade. A tremendous amount of competition there, which isn't to say you shouldn't try it, but it's also typically not a particularly highly paid profession, only if you get into the very upper strata of it. Okay, so what I wanted to give you here in terms of licensed professions are opportunities to start a business that do not cost a lot, and where there's programs, opportunities to help you learn the business, learn what you need to do, that are also not going to cost you a lot of money. Okay, so let's just take real estate here for a minute. There's several different aspects of real estate. There's selling property or working with buyers and sellers, what we call brokerage. There's lending money, real estate loans, what's typically called mortgage brokerage, okay, or mortgage banking, okay. And then there's other things. There's property management, and then there's things like escrow and title and those kind of things. So escrow and title, those are probably not businesses you're going to start. You may go to work for them, but that's out of what we're really dealing with. So I'm going to deal primarily with brokerage, helping people buy and sell property, and lending, mortgage brokerage, helping people get loans, okay, and property management. Now, in some states, there may be only one license necessary to do all 3 of those. In other states, there may be individual licenses. So, for example, here in California, you need a real estate license to be involved in brokerage and to be involved in property management. There's a separate license now, as I understand it, to be a mortgage broker. Now, I'm not sure if you have to have a real estate license and a mortgage broker's license to do it, or just the mortgage broker's license. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure about that. But in any event, there is more than one license here in California. And that will vary, I think, from state to state. So wherever you are, you'll need to figure that out. Having said that, there are programs that you can take that will help you study to pass the license exam, which is the first step. They're not very expensive. And in general, the licenses are not particularly expensive either. Maybe, a couple of $100 or so. Excuse me, there's usually an application fee and or not a license fee, an application fee and or an exam fee, and then there's a license fee. So like I said, there's typically two of those, but all told, it's usually not more than a few $100s. Okay, so that's real estate, and there are companies out there that are looking to grow. They're looking to hire agents, and they have tremendous training programs available. So one of my very closest friends, Bill Gross, he works for eXp Realty. I believe they're the fastest growing real estate company in the United States. And I can tell you they have tremendous training resources available to you. So if you want to be involved in real estate brokerage, specifically brokerage, they don't do lending or property management, I would encourage you to check out eXp Realty, see what they have to offer. Okay, and I'll put a link, in the show notes to their website. You can check them out. They have tremendous training available, and that's what in any of these licensed professions, unless you already know what you're doing in the case of building trades, where you're going to have to know what you're doing and have experience in order to get licensed. You want to find an organization that's going to train you. Okay, that's going to be the key, that you get trained, that you have mentors, you have people that you can reach out to help you learn what you need to do, people who are already successful and can show you that path to success. Okay, now, some people will tell you these days you have to be full-time in real estate in order to be successful. I don't want to say I completely disagree with that. It will definitely be a lot easier to be successful in real estate if you can do it full time. But that doesn't mean that you have to start full time, and it just may not be practical. So, several people I know started out in real estate part time. They built up. They eventually, sometimes they made a connection where they were able to get into it full time by maybe working as an assistant for somebody who, was able then to pay them so they could kind of, work full time and meet their bills while they learned the business and develop their own practice. There are sometimes opportunities like that out there. It really depends. You just have to kind of keep your eyes open, your ears open, that kind of thing. But I do think if you're dedicated and disciplined, you can become successful in real estate starting out part-time. Okay. It'll also depend on which part of the business you want to be in. If you're going to be in residential brokerage, for example, so typically you're going to be working with clients after work and on the weekends anyway, because that's when they're available to go see properties, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So although these days there's so much stuff online, some of that has changed. But in general, I think, again, if you are dedicated and disciplined, you can start out part-time in real estate and build up that business, and then at some point go full-time when you're ready and know you can support yourself. Okay, financial services are another licensed profession. Excuse me. See, this is what happens when you're sick. All that stuff comes up. So financial services is another area where you have to be licensed in order to be involved in the business. So when I say financial services, I'm talking about doing things like selling insurance, life insurance, potentially medical insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, those kind of things. So what's known as life, disability, and health, that's one category, and then casualty insurance, that's things like auto, homeowners, et cetera. So in most states, you're going to have to have some kind of license. So for example, here in California, you do need a license to sell life insurance. Okay, that license will allow you to sell term life insurance and I believe whole life insurance as well. If you're going to sell any kind of variable product, okay, now you need more licenses than just a life insurance license. And that's true nationwide. Okay. In California, you do not need a license to sell auto insurance, homeowners insurance, those kind of casualty insurances. Okay. So you're going to need to be affiliated with a broker somehow. They may have requirements, things you need to know, et cetera. That's a separate issue. Okay. So that's one type of financial services. And then the other type of financial services are things like securities. So you might want to help people with their retirement accounts, IRAs, and those kind of things. You might want to help people manage their wealth, okay, wealth management. So those require securities licenses, and there's all kinds of I don't know, 20 or more securities licenses. Okay, so for example, if you're going to sell mutual funds, let's say to people who have retirement accounts, IRAs, Roth IRAs, that kind of thing. So you'll need a Series 6 license. Okay, and in many states, you also need what's called a Series 63. So the 6 license is basically a national license. The 63 is a state-specific license, and you'll need to be registered both nationally and in your state in order for you to qualify to sell mutual funds. Okay. Now, I'm going to digress for just a minute and talk about a little bit about the licensing process for securities licenses. So this is not true of all licenses, but for the most common licenses you would get to sell securities, you're going to start off taking something called the SIE, the Securities Industries Essentials Exam. That's a base, it's going to test you on a base level of knowledge of the securities industry, and it's a prerequisite to then taking what are called top-off exams for these various licenses. So the Series 6 exam, you cannot take that until you've passed the SIE exam. Same with the 63, okay? The same is true, I believe, of the 7, and the same is true of the 65. So if you want to sell what are called managed accounts, you're going to need to have a 65 license, which essentially makes you an investment advisor. Now, you're saying, wait, I'm going to be an investment advisor? I don't know. There would be so much to learn. Whoa. Don't worry. There are a number of companies out there that are looking to hire representatives to sell financial services. In some cases, they will pay for all of your training. Okay? They'll pay for you to get your life insurance license, your securities licenses. They'll pay for the exam preparation classes. They'll pay for the license fees. They'll pay for all that. And they'll also train you both in sales and in the information that you need to know in order to be effective. Plus, they'll have support services. So, for example, if you want to sell wealth management, you're not going to be the wealth manager. Okay, because you're not going to both sell wealth management services and manage people's portfolios at the same time. Those are very, very different skill sets. Okay, and the people who are managing the portfolios, they're trained specifically to do that. So you bring the business in, and then the professionals take over managing your clients' portfolios, and you're as kind of like the liaison between the client and the people doing the managing. Okay, and you'll learn how to talk about it, how to talk about performance and all these various things. Okay, and you'll learn the requirements in terms of what you have to do about disclosures and all that kind of stuff. But you're not going to actually be, saying, okay, well, let's say you've got $500,000 to invest. We're going to put, $10,000 in AT&T, and we're going to put, or $100,000 in AT&T, or what. You're not going to do that. Okay, you're not going to do any of that. Okay, there'll be professional portfolio managers who will do that. Now, on the mutual fund side of things, you will learn about mutual funds. And that's not nearly as difficult to learn about as, trading stocks and managing portfolios. Okay. And you'll learn about what mutual funds are, what different categories of them there are, how families of funds work together. You'll learn all that stuff. You'll learn it all. Okay. And they'll train you. Okay. And in many cases, you're going to have a weekly meeting where you're going to be meeting with other people, and you'll have the opportunity to really learn. Okay. And the nice thing about it is, if you also want to build wealth, so you'll be learning the information you need to know in order to build your own wealth while you help other people do the same thing. Okay. So again, as a licensed professional, you're not going to need a lot of capital to get started. You're going to need time. You're going to have to study. You're going to have to pass your exams, and you're going to have to affiliate with a company that's going to help you be successful. And there are several of them out there. I'll put some links in the show notes to different companies. There's Primerica, there's Transamerica. I think there's a couple of others. I'm trying to remember what they are off the top of my head. But anyway, those are things you can check out. And you'll hear all kinds of, they're pyramid schemes, they're this, they're that. I invite you to do the research about them and understand what you're getting into, and don't just listen to what people are saying, because people say lots of things, but that's not necessarily accurate to your situation. I'm looking at the time here. Okay, I just have a couple minutes left talking about building trades. So if you have already been working as a plumber, a carpenter, or whatever, maybe you're not licensed yet, but you've been doing it for a while, I would encourage you to look into getting licensed, okay? Because that gives you access legally to a much broader array of work that's out there, and it will allow you to charge more, okay? Now, to the best of my knowledge, all of the building trade licenses require you to pass an exam and have a certain amount of experience to get fully licensed, okay? But because the demand for qualified tradespeople is so high today, this could be a really great opportunity for you to start your own business. And by the way, even if you've just been kind of doing it around your house, but you really love doing it, I would encourage you to reach out to people who are doing it professionally. Plumbers are looking for people. Electricians are looking for people. Heating, ventilating, and air conditioning companies are looking for people. All of them are looking for more people because they've got the work. What they don't have are the technicians to go and do the work. And maybe you'll go to work for someone else while you get experience and you get licensed, and then you can go out on your own, or you can moonlight when you're not working for the company, doing work on your own. Obviously, you're going to make sure that that's allowed in the state that you're in, okay? But in any event, I encourage you to look at those, especially if you don't like sitting behind a desk, sitting behind a computer. Obviously, there'll be some time spent doing that even as a plumber or carpenter or whatever, but a lot less than if you're doing real estate services or financial services. So these are, again, this is a second fast route to starting your own business. Now, when I say fast, I mean, depending on what your situation is, you could be up and going in less than 30 days in terms of starting your training and all of that. And you could be up and, already generating at least a few dollars within 3 to 6 months, if you're very diligent about it. Now, if you're doing it part-time, probably going to take you longer than that. It might take 6 to 9 months. In the case of real estate, depending on how competitive your market is, it could take you a year to get to your first transaction closing. Okay. But again, at that point, you're going to get a commission. It's probably going to be a pretty nicely sized check. And it'll have been a lot of work to get to that first one, but the second one typically will come more quickly, and then on you go. Okay, and that's a lot faster than it would be, trying to start a retail store, trying to do some kind of tech startup. These things take a long, long time. They involve a lot of raising of funding and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to be talking about those kind of things in future shows. But if you're looking for the fastest way to start a business, even part-time, these are the two. So let's see, I'm going to go back to the first one. Look for a skill, interest, or hobby that you have that you could turn into a business, or consider entering into a licensed profession. Okay. And that will give you a relatively quick route to starting a business. We're up against a 1:30 here. So I have to sign off because I've got a 1:30 commitment. So I just want to say thank you for joining me. Please join me every week, 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern time. And as I always do, sign off by saying, Marie, darling, I love you, and you're still my belle. Thank you so much.